Very rarely I play a game out of personal interest, much preferring to watch little sister muscling through a game on easy for the 20 billionth time. It's also rare that I play a game that aforementioned sister hasn't already beaten my butt over with a whooping stick. However, there are games where the tides turn and I defeat her at her favorite pastime, and she, sometimes refusing certain games, preferring the more mainstream brethren. I'm referring to the Guitar Hero series, and I would like to look at the under-desired gem, Guitar Hero on Tour for the Nintendo DS. On a side note, this game is not to be confused with the Rock Band clone, Guitar Hero World Tour, for the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Nintendo Wii, Xbox 360, and optionally the Windows PC and Apple Mac. I first heard about the game from my Goliath cousin, who was at the time laughing at the concept that Nintendo have decided to make a game that was relatively trademarked in toy guitars with buttons and a whammy bar for something that best resembles as a small electronic book with a touchscreen. He said that the package came with a button pad and a special stylus that resembles a guitar pick. The button pad plugs into the GBA port of the DS and is played by strumming on the touchscreen whilst holding the DS sideways like the Brain Age games. Upon more research of the game, I found that the whammy function was activated by strumming a long note and, I quote, wiggling like a madman with the pick touching the touchscreen. Also that to activate the star power, you can either yell rock out into the microphone or by pressing any button that isn't on the button pad or labeled start. Once I got the game and turned it on, it makes a special point that the player might get wanker's cramp while playing the game and suggests that you play the game with a straight wrist and frequent breaks during gameplay, which may be a bit of a problem with the impression being that Guitar Hero fanatics play such games for hours on end, despite crampage. It also makes a point that the game's music content might not be loud enough through the DS speakers alone, and suggests wearing headphones so that the sound would be a bit more better directed. When you actually start playing career/quick play mode or guitar battle mode for the first time, the game automatically throws you into the appropriate tutorial mode so you could get used to the fact that the thing you're playing on is a DS, and not a guitar controller for console's elemental P. This may cause a fair bit of impatient havoc amongst players, but is still proven very useful, specifically when it gets to the star power section, saying that there are more practical and easy ways of activating your point booster than the aforementioned yell or push random DS button. As for the guitar battle tutorial, it runs through what you need to do in order to get an attack, how you can attack, and a brief run through on what attacks are made available, making it semi-similar to Legends of Rock in that aspect, with the attacks so obviously changed. For instance, Cut String has you actually restringing the guitar mid-song instead of tapping the button that was cut off, and Overload has the song cut out for a short period of time instead of the game board flickering, and Lefty Flip has changed to flip screen, which may look frustratingly difficult for having the touch screen all of a sudden switch to the game screen and vice versa, but really prevents you from selecting another attack from your gathered arsenal, which will consist of either pointless attacks, usable attacks, power-ups that will prevent the opposing player from attacking you, or the power-up that has you stealing one of the attacks from the opposing player. As for the actual gameplay, it's relatively standard for general Guitar Hero games with a few slight technical downgrades. First, it should be noted that the button pad has no fifth orange button, which would make sense seeing as that your hand is strapped onto the thing. It would be pure torture to even attempt to reach it unless you have another finger on your hand. Another thing that should be noted is the whammy function. Not that it's a bad thing, but the fact that you have to wiggle the stylus also essentially means that when you hit a long note that you don't cut out if you strum again, as long as you keep the fret buttons held down, making it unrealistic but easier than the strum again strike out method of the more mainstream Guitar Heroes. So because of these downgrades, that would make the game too easy for Guitar Heroes, right? Well, I'm not sure about other people who actually have the game, but that wasn't the impression I got once I first tried out its hard and expert difficulties. The game makes up for a lack of orange button by putting in a clustered heck of hammer-ons that makes the flat of the bumblebees look like Mary Had a Little Lamb. Not to say that the songs are impossible to do for some people, because like Raining Blood or Through the Fire and Flames, the songs will eventually be a pushover to do after a fair bit of obsessive practice and a few hours of wasted life. I suggest going into the practice mode to hone your skills without failing horribly. However, I do not suggest practicing the tricky solos separate from the song, for it lacks the ability to slow down the sections, only to have you improve relying on hit and miss as it loops around for an infinite number of times. Despite its faults, however, it's still a fun game and by no means is trying to replace the actual Guitar Hero franchise itself. It's good for Guitar Heroes on the go, and though it looks a little nerdy, it's a little bit more socially acceptable than somebody cursing about not getting the high score on their cell phones.